Good morning, everyone, and thank you so much for tuning in to Joy Church Grants Pass online service. We are so glad that you guys are here with us this morning. It's going to be a great Sunday.
Oh, hey guys. So there's going to be tonight, and it's going to be pretty flippin' sweet. I mean, it's going to be pretty awesome. I mean, LaFonda's going to be there. It's going to be pretty cool. It's from 6 to 8 p.m. at the youth building, and anyone from junior high to high school is going to be invited. It's going to be pretty flippin' sweet. I mean, it's going to be pretty awesome. We hope to see you there. Yes, I love technology, always and forever.
All right, well, now we're going to enter into a time of worship. So I would just invite you guys to enter in the presence of God wherever you're at. Invite the presence in, stand to your feet, and worship with us this morning. Oh, we worship you. The highest king would welcome me. I was lost, but he brought me in. Oh, his love for me. Oh, his love for me. Who the Son sets free, oh, is free indeed. I'm a child of God, yes I am. Free at last, he has ransomed me. His grace runs deep. While I was a slave to sin, Jesus died for me. Yes, he died for me. Who the Son sets free, oh, is free indeed. I'm a child of God, yes I am. In my Father's house, there's a place for me. I'm a child not forsaken. I am who you say I am. You are for me, not against me. I am who you say I am. I am chosen, not forsaken. I am who you say I am. You are for me, not against me. I am who you say I am. Come on, sing it out. I am chosen, not forsaken. I am who you say I am. You are for me, not against me. I am who you say I am. I am chosen, not forsaken. I am who you say I am. You are for me, not against me. I am who you say I am. Oh, I am who you say I am. Who the Son sets free, oh, is free indeed. I'm a child of God. Yes, I am. You are good. You're good. Oh, you are good. You're good. Oh, 'cause you are good. You're good. Oh, you are good. You're good. Oh. Let the King of my heart be the mountain where I run, the fountain I drink from. Oh, he is my song. Let the King of my heart be the shadow where I hide, the ransom for my life. Oh, he is my song. 'Cause you are good, you're good. Oh, 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 let the King of my heart be the wind inside my sails, the anchor in the waves. Oh, he is my song. Let the King of my heart be the fire inside my veins, the echo of my days. Oh, he is my song. Let the King of my heart be the wind inside my sails, the anchor in the waves. Oh, he is my song. Let the King of my heart be the fire inside my veins, the echo of my days. Oh, he is my song. 'Cause you are good, you're good. Oh, 'cause you are good, you're good. Oh, 'cause you are good, you're good. Oh, 'cause you are good. gonna let me down. You're never gonna let me down. You're never gonna let me down. You're never gonna let me down. Come on, sing it out. 'Cause you're never gonna let me down. You're never gonna let me down. 'Cause you're never gonna let me down. 'Cause you're never gonna let me down. 'Cause you are good, you're good. Oh, 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 sing you're never. 'Cause you're never gonna let me down. 'Cause you're never gonna let me down. No, no. 'Cause you're never gonna let me down. 'Cause you're never gonna let me down. 'Cause you are good, you're good. Oh, 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 you unravel me with a melody. You surround me with a song of deliverance from my enemies, till all my fears are gone. And I'm no longer a slave to fear, for I am a child of God. I'm no longer a slave to fear, for I am a child of God. From my mother's womb, you have chosen me. Love has called my name, and I've been born again into your family. Your blood flows through my veins, and I'm no longer a slave to fear, for I am a child of God. I'm no longer a slave to fear, for I am a child of God. Sing out, I'm no longer, 'cause I'm no longer a slave to fear, for I am a child of God. Oh, 'cause I'm no longer a slave to fear, 'cause I am a child of God. You split child of God. Come on, sing, you split. You split the sea so I could walk right through it. My fears are drowned in perfect love. Oh, you rescued me so I could stand and sing. I am a child of God. Sing, I'm no longer, 'cause I'm no longer a slave to fear, for I am a child of God. I'm no longer a slave to fear, for I am a child of God. Come on, sing it again. I'm no longer, 'cause I'm no longer a slave to fear. No, I'm not, for I am a child of God. I'm no longer, 'cause I'm no longer a slave to fear, for I am a child of God. Come on, sing, you split the sea. You split the sea so I could walk right through it. My fears were drowned in perfect love. You rescued me so I could stand and sing. I am a child of God. Come on, one last time. You split. You split the sea so I could walk right through it. My fears are drowned in perfect love. Oh, you rescued me so I could stand and sing that I am a child of God. Sing, I am a child of God. Come on, proclaim it. I am a child of God. All right, well, what an awesome time of worship this morning. We love worshiping at Joy Church, and we are so glad that we're able to worship together. Right now, we're going to welcome up Pastor Aaron for the message.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to Joy Church Grants Pass. We are so excited that you've tuned in today. Now, you might not know this, but we're in the middle of a presidential election. I'm filming this on Wednesday, and so we still don't know at this point who the next president of the United States of America is. But Joy Church Grants Pass has gone out of our way, and we have made sure that we went through and scientifically verified to make sure that whoever it is that you personally voted for is the right candidate, and all those other people are just plain wrong. So you're welcome. Now, let me ask you this. Have you ever given a baby a lemon? Because as far as I'm concerned, I don't think that there is anything more fun or more funny. In fact, I would go so far as to say that all of human endeavors thus far throughout history, having families, having children, none of it has been about the satisfaction of raising good, godly, successful children. The reason that we have babies as humans is because it's so hilarious when you give a child a slice of lemon. Now, let's just all admit that we're all abusive enough that we've done this to our kids. When you're out at a restaurant and you get an iced tea and it has a wedge of lemon in there, you hand it to your little innocent baby, and they take that thing and they are so excited. Mom and Dad, they gave me some food to eat. They never do this. And they take that lemon straight into the mouth, and then it's so sour that their face turns inside out. I mean, like their lips like suck in and their eyes close and they shake and convulse, and it's like the funniest thing ever. But what's so funny about it is they submit themselves to this torture, right? This super sour flavor, and they pull it out of their mouth, and then it kind of recedes and goes away, and then they look at it And you see this battle in their mind, this somewhere deep within their primitive brain, they have this conflict of impulses that are firing all at the same time, and they're thinking, I just put this in my mouth, and it was a horrible experience. It was painful. It was so sour, but it's still in my hand, and I think I'm going to do it again and see if something else happens this time. And sure enough, 100 times out of 100, they always do. They will sit there and they will just munch on a lemon all night long if you let them. Now, we laugh at babies for doing this. Babies, you're so dumb. Can't believe you do that with a lemon. Not me, I'd never do that. But what's so funny is that there's so many times in our life that God must be looking at us like we're a baby who has a wedge of lemon. He's like, why on earth would you go back to that? Why would you go back to them? Excuse me. Why? After the experience that you had, it was so bitter. It was so disgusting. It was terrible. But you would, for whatever reason, take the lemon out of your mouth and think about it for a few seconds and then go right back into that situation. Paul is talking about a similar concept. Listen to what he says here in chapter 10 of 1 Corinthians. He says, "For I do not want you to be unaware. I don't want you to be ignorant. I don't want you to be stupid, brothers, that our fathers were all under the cloud." Now, Paul is talking about the events that took place far back in the Old Testament and in Exodus, and when the Israelites had been in captivity in Egypt for several hundred years, over 400 years, God finally said, I'm going to raise up a deliverer by the name of Moses, and I'm going to lead my people to freedom. I'm going to give them the promised land. And so this is usually well known sort of in this time, this history. And so Paul brings this up. He says, I don't want you to be unaware. Our fathers, and he even includes, ostensibly, he includes Gentiles in this. He's saying that those who went before, the Israelites who we read about in the Old Testament, they're our fathers. We're born into this family, but they were all under the cloud. Now, you might not understand what he's talking about right there. He uses some kind of mysterious language, but God's presence actually went before the Israelites when he delivered them from Egypt in the form of a cloud. That's how they knew where to go. They followed the cloud. They stayed within God's protection and his presence. And so Paul says our fathers were under the cloud and all passed through the sea. If you might be aware of this story, you might not. That the Egyptians were chasing the Israelites as they fled Egypt, and the Red Sea parted, and they all were able to walk through on dry land, and then the Red Sea collapsed on the Egyptians, and it secured their safety, at least for the time being. So our fathers passed, they were all under the cloud, they all passed through the sea, they were baptized into Moses in the cloud and in the sea, and all ate the same spiritual food, which was manna. When they were wandering in the wilderness, they were out in the desert, there was nothing to eat, they complained, and God sent manna. There was this bread-like substance that came and fell from the sky every night, and they were able to eat. They ate the same spiritual food and physical food, and all drank the same spiritual drink. What was that spiritual drink? Well, they drank from the spiritual rock that followed them, and the rock was Christ. And again, if you read this stuff, you'll find out that they were dying of thirst, and Moses asked what to do, and God said, strike this rock, and he struck it with his staff, and water came out and filled a spring, and they were able to drink and survive. And so there was, assuming that the Old Testament is true, assuming that what Paul is documenting and what he's confirming to be the case here is really, truly, historically miraculous things happening, you would think that the Israelites, seeing all this, being part of this, being under this cloud where God is in some kind of physical manifestation, he's leading the Israelites through the desert, that the Red Sea parts and they're able to walk through it, that food is falling from the sky, that water is coming out of a rock. You would think that this is like the most giant, honking lemon wedge that could ever possibly be. You'd think like you guys have experienced God, his presence, him going before you. You experience like just amazing deliverance from Egypt, which was awful. And it says in the next verse, in verse 5, it says, nevertheless, with most of them, God was not pleased, for they were overthrown in the wilderness. Now, this is like, you had Egypt. It was bitter. It was sour. It was terrible. You were oppressed. You were in slavery. Other people told you what to do, where to go, how to work, all of that in Egypt. And then you left that bitterness. You left that place. You were led miraculously out of that place, and God was bringing you into a land of your own, a land that you could call home, a land flowing with milk and honey. It's described that way in Scripture, and I want to know what that means. I want to go to a land that's flowing with milk and honey. But think of this. This is like you leave this place and all this deliverance and this miraculous stuff, and then still, before you go into the land, you complain, grumble, fall into idolatry, and stick that lemon wedge right back in your mouth. And that's what Paul is saying. Like, let's learn from this, guys. Let's learn from those who went before us and who messed this up in a big, honking way. Now, he says in verse 6, now these things took place as examples for us. Now, thanks a lot. I mean, how would you like to be the person who like fell in the wilderness and your whole life was just an example for people thousands of years later? There were examples for us that we might not desire evil. And we talk about this a lot. Paul is saying that the big problem here, the big idea, the big issue here is when you have an innate, an inborn, this root motivation, this drive, which is a desire for evil, this thirst, you got the Jones on, you want something that's wrong, that we might not desire evil as they did. Do not be idolaters, as some of them were. As it is written, the people sat down to eat and drink and rose up to play. Now, this is interesting because Paul is continuing his conversation here from the last couple of chapters. And if you're just catching up for the first time this week, we're in the middle of a book study. It's called Altogether Separate. And it's about how the church is supposed to be all together. We're supposed to be unified by certain things, and then we're supposed to be separate from the world. And we're supposed to be very distinct in the way that we believe, in the way that we live. And so we're going through the book of 1 Corinthians, and we've been talking through various subjects. I don't know if you've noticed, but Paul talks about a whole bunch of things in this book that very closely parallel where we are today. But something that he talks about a lot in the last couple of chapters is idol worship and idolatry. And I think it brings some clarity in this chapter because oftentimes when we picture idol worship, we picture like a physical, some kind of idol, something that's been carved out of wood or stone. There's people who are maybe bowing down to it or burning incense or offering it food or gifts or whatever. And there is that in the world. That's a real thing. It's not really that common here in America, but it is common in all kinds of places throughout the world. But the way Paul hones in on this is a little bit different, and I think it will reveal that we're oftentimes a little bit more involved in idol worship than we would care to admit. So he says that they provided these examples for us so that we would learn not to desire evil and not to be idolaters, as some of them were. And as it's written, and this is written in the Old Testament, the people sat down to eat and drink and rose up to play. Now, that sounds somewhat innocent, and it's not. It's saying that people who were given to idolatry, they were given to idol worship, the things that were distinctives in their life, the things that came out as obvious that they were idolaters, were that they were given to their fleshly appetites, which is food and drink. It's just their impulses, whatever they felt like doing, that's the right thing to do. And they rose up to play. Now that sounds like they went out and were throwing the frisbee around, getting their frizz on out in the wilderness, but that's not what it means. Most likely it means in a weird, and sexual and possibly orgy, kind of like dark, demonic sort of debauchery. That's what the verse is probably talking about. And he's saying that these are some common distinctives. These are commonplace items that show up in the lives of people who are idolaters. And it's funny because he doesn't say, well, don't be an idolater because I don't want to see you in some pagan temple bowing down to a statue. He says, don't be an idolater because this is the kind of thing that shows up in your life. And this is why we need to be careful, because probably all of us are not bowing down to wooden statues, but all of us would probably say that we have felt the pull or the temptation to give into our fleshly desires, our impulses, things that just, I want this, and so it's right. I feel like this, and I feel like I want this person, so it must be right. It must be God. Or we're given to sexual temptation or whatever avenue you want to explore that. And so it's interesting. Paul is starting to kind of peel up the corners of the rug here and say, wait a second, this isn't so much just surface level idolatry. This is stuff that shows up in your behavior. And I absolutely 100% agree that that's the case. It's just a fact that when there is a demonic or a tempting pull towards humanity, towards our flesh, towards our just base human desires, you always get into this cycle where it's always pleasing and satisfying at first. It's easy to give in at first, but then you get hooked into something and it gets weird and it gets dark and it gets demonic. And then when you want to get out, it's very, very difficult. And that's the nature of addiction. That's the nature of darkness. It's the nature of demonic kind of stuff, is that if it feels right, do it. And it's just a little here and a little there and gateway this and gateway that and whatever. And it's real easy to give into an impulse, but it's very difficult to dial that back later on when you want to. That's why people who are addicted are addicted. And it's the opposite. You're sold the opposite bill of goods by the gospel. The gospel doesn't lie about itself. I mean, the Christian life, Jesus just says, hey, people, this is not going to be easy. This is not easy to get into. It's hard. Like, it's difficult. You have to give your body to be burned. You have to take on a totally different mindset. You have to have a different heart. You have to have different principles. Like, you have to give everything that you are and everything that you have so that you can attain this gospel, this family, this Christian life. But it's the kind of thing where it has a costly entry. It's a barrier to entry. It's difficult to get into. But when you say, you know what, it's worth it for me to give everything that I have, you find out that that's where real lasting joy and pleasure comes from. So on one hand, you have easy to get into, but difficult to escape. And then you have Christianity. It's more difficult to even get into the mindset where I'm willing to give everything I have to be with this Jesus. But once you do, you find out this is the place that I want to be forever. It was counterintuitive. I didn't expect it, but when I gave it all away, I found out that I gained so much more. I think that's what Paul is starting to point out here. In verse 8, it says, we must not indulge in sexual immorality, as some of them did, and 23,000 died in a single day. We must not put Christ to the test, as some of them did when they were grumbling and complaining and that nothing was ever good enough, and were destroyed by serpents, nor grumble as some of them did and were destroyed by the destroyer. Now, these things happened to them as an example. Thanks, guys. Appreciate that for making an example for us to follow. But they were written down for our instruction, on whom the end of the age has come. Therefore, let anyone who thinks that he stands take heed lest he fall. Now, that is an enormously important verse to listen to. Let anyone who thinks that he's okay be careful. Let anyone who thinks that he stands be careful, be circumspect, be wise, because you might fall. Now, have you ever seen someone walk on the ice It's hilarious. It's like the best thing ever. Now, when someone just walks, they don't know there's ice in front of them, they just walk out there normally, that's when they always eat it. That's when they fall. That's when they hurt themselves. It shows up on fail videos and we watch them on YouTube and laugh uproariously. But it's always because they're not taking heed. They're not careful because they don't know it's there. Have you ever seen someone who knows they're on ice? They don't look cool. They're doing this thing. Their eyes are open real wide and their hands are out and they're kind of taking tiny little steps. You can't look cool doing that. That's not like swag, like check it out, I'm suave. Like you look like a nerd. But those people fall a lot less because they think, my gosh, this ground under my feet is very slippery, and I don't care what I look like because I'd rather look like a dork than fall on my face and break my teeth out. Like, that's the point. Paul is saying, hey, be careful. Especially be careful if you think everything's okay. If you always think everything is okay and everything is going to, oh yeah, que sera, it's all wonderful, raindrops and lollipops, me and God, we're tight, we're like this, whatever. Watch out. Because it's those people who unsuspectingly fall into things that they don't want to. Take heed. Watch yourself. It says, no temptation has overtaken you. In other words, no temptation is just flattened you. It steamrolled you. It came upon you and it just, there was nothing you could do about it. No temptation has overtaken you that is not common to man. Whatever you're feeling and whoever you are, maybe there's some of you out there listening to this thinking, I am all alone in my struggles. There is nobody who has felt this. There's nobody who's experienced this. And I'm just going to rot away in my little puddle of shame so that people don't think less of me. And I just want to tell you that whoever you are and whatever you're going through, there's probably a good number of people who have been through it. Please, for your own sake, talk to somebody. There's no temptation that's overtaken you that's not common to man. God is faithful, and he will not let you become tempted beyond your ability. But with the temptation, he will also provide the way of escape, that you may be able to endure it. Now, what Paul is saying here is that God will allow you to be tempted for whatever reason. Thanks a lot. Like it builds character. It turns us into people that we wouldn't be otherwise, but he won't allow us to be tempted to the degree that there's no way that we could resist it. Now, I think a lot of us could look at this and be like, okay, I don't necessarily hate the temptation that comes my way. What I hate is the means that God gives me to endure it. So some of those means might be opening up your mouth, getting vulnerable with some people, being accountable to people that you know and love and trust. It might mean that those means are hanging out with a different set of people, not allowing yourself to have access to certain programs on TV, not allowing yourself to have access at certain times to the internet. I mean, things that might make you feel more childish, more restricted. But those might be the very means. And you're like, well, Aaron, I don't like that. That doesn't appeal to my pride. I think that's kind of the point. I think that's a lot of the point. That God creates means for us to escape and endure temptation. That the question we have to answer is, am I excited about those means? Am I looking for that way of escape? Am I willing to humble myself to the degree that I will ask another human person for help? Because there's things that I go through that I just don't feel like I can fight on my own. So he goes on, therefore, my beloved, flee from idolatry. Now, I don't know about you, but there is so much of the Bible that's like super tough. I mean, it's like warriors and bows and arrows and killing Goliath and swords. And in the New Testament, it's like, put on all of the armor of God that you may stand. You may defend yourself. You've got a sword of the Spirit and a helmet. And like all the guys are like, yeah, let's get armor. And then in certain instances, only a couple, is the Bible like, you know what? When you come up against certain things, don't stand, don't fight, don't like try to be the Terminator, Rambo. Like in certain instances, just run away. Just flee. I mean, just drop all your stuff and just get the heck out of there. And that's what Paul is saying here. My beloved, don't skirt idolatry. Don't circumvent it. Don't kind of be okay with it and kind of not. Don't tolerate it. Just absolutely run away as fast as you can and as far as you can. Flee from idolatry. I speak as to sensible people. You guys are smart. You guys know how to think. Judge for yourselves what I say, he's saying to the Corinthian church. The cup of blessing that we bless, and he starts talking about communion, the Lord's table, the thing that causes us to be together and also separate. The cup of blessing that we bless, and that was wine or juice that they would, at the Lord's table or communion, if you're not aware, is where people will take the bread and the wine. And it represents the body and the blood of Christ. This was one of the most common sacraments in the early church, and it's still a common sacrament today. It's something that we do to say, hey, we are in this family together. And the thing that brought us here, the thing that paved a way for us to be a part of this community is the body and the blood of Jesus Christ. And so Paul is bringing that up here because it's very important to the early church and it's very important to us. He says, the cup of blessing that we bless, is it not a participation in the blood of Christ? Is it not the way that we commemorate, the way that we pledge, the way that we embrace that Jesus was who he said he was, that he did what he said he was going to do? The bread that we break, is it not a participation in the body of Christ? Because there is one bread. We who are many are one body altogether. Because there is one bread. We who are many different individuals are one thing. For we all partake of the one bread. Consider the people of Israel. Are not those who eat the sacrifices participants in the altar? In other words, people who go and sacrifice an animal for their sins, that was Old Testament law, that was all taken care of in the person of Jesus Christ. But he's drawing a parallel here. He's saying that those who eat from that animal, aren't they participating in that sacrifice? What do I imply then? That food offered to idols is anything? Or that an idol in and of itself is anything? No, they're not. The food that's offered to an idol, no big deal. The idol itself, this little wooden statue, no big deal. It's nothing. But he goes on. He says, no, I imply that what pagans sacrifice, they offer to demons and not to God. I do not want you to be participants with demons. You cannot drink the cup of the Lord and the cup of demons. You cannot partake of the table of the Lord and the table of demons. Shall we provoke the Lord to jealousy? Are we stronger than he? And so that in Corinth, in the church, there were people who they were confused. They didn't know how to conduct themselves. They didn't know if they could eat meat that was offered to an idol. They didn't know if they could be in a temple where pagan sacrifice was taking place. They didn't know how Jesus interacted with these other gods that they knew in their city and in their surrounding region. And Paul is saying, listen, it's not about the meat. It's not about the temple. It's not even about the idol itself. That's no big deal to me. What it's about is that without knowing it, you think you are offering your sacrifice to some image that you've created in your head, something that you're reaching out to for help, and in actuality, what you are contacting is demonic. And this to me is the big take-home point from this section, in that lots of times we can get confused to the degree that we think that something is okay, it's normal, it's commonplace. Everyone else is doing it. Everyone else is watching it. Everyone else is smoking it, drinking it. You know, whatever you want to say, whatever you want to fill in the blank there, and it's just normal and it's just accepted behavior. And what Paul is saying is that there's a lot of stuff in Corinth that is accepted behavior. The problem is the people who are doing these sacrifices don't know that they are engaging in something demonic. And my suggestion to you is that oftentimes we can do things that are commonplace, they're accepted, they're legal, all of that. But at the end of the day, what we find out is that they lead to something demonic. And the way that you know is because it will always justify, your fleshly impulses. It'll always rubber stamp anything you feel like doing. And it will always, for whatever reason, lead you towards some sort of weird sexual behavior, and it will always lead you into addiction. Always. Those are the markers of the distinctives of idolatry and demonic stuff, is that they always involve that stuff. And if you find yourself in a place where you say, there's stuff I have in my life that I'm ashamed of, I don't even want to talk about, I don't even want to admit, I honestly even want to stop doing it, I want to stop looking at it, I want to stop taking it, but I can't. At first it was just a little bit of a dabble, it was just flirting, it was just this, that, or the other, but man, it just went on, and now I have a real problem on my hands. I can't seem to get rid of it, but I also can't tell anybody because I'd be dreadfully ashamed and embarrassed if anybody knew about this, and that is a very, very dangerous place to be. Don't be that person. I promise you, there are many, many people in this church that love you enough that we would open our arms and our hearts and our houses for you to spill the beans, for you to explain where you're at, for you to get prayer, and for you to experience the deliverance that only Jesus Christ can bring. The freedom of our Savior, the grace of our good God. If that's you, please reach out for help. So let's finish up the chapter. Paul pivots a little bit here, but I think he closes it in a very constructive way. Verse 23, he says, all things are lawful. And you'll notice the quotation marks on there. Paul has done this many times in this chapter or in this book, where he says, this is your phrase. I'm doing my air quotes because this is what you Corinthians like to say. All things are lawful, but not all things are helpful. And we've talked about this concept in previous messages. There are things that are legal, there are things that are socially acceptable, but they are not good for you. And Paul hits that nail on the head. Again, he quotes, all things are lawful, but not all things build up. And that's true. There are plenty of things that you can get away with in a legal sense that will absolutely blow your life up. Let no one seek his own good, but the good of his neighbor. When is the last time you can actually say that you woke up in the morning and you thought, you know what, I'm not going to care about my life today. I'm going to reach out to someone and make sure that everything in their life is going well. It's a difficult thing to do. Eat whatever is sold in the meat market without raising any question on the ground of conscience. So Paul is saying, listen, you go into the meat market, if they're selling stuff that was sacrificed to idols, don't even question it. Go there, buy the meat, and eat it. He says, for the earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof. Everything on earth belongs to God in the first place. If one of the unbelievers invites you to dinner and you are disposed to go, thank you, Paul, for putting that in there. Like, if someone invites you to dinner and you want to go, then go. But he leaves us a little wiggle room. Like, if you don't want to go, just say no. Eat whatever is set before you without raising any question on the ground of conscience. Don't be like, hey, wait a minute, was this offered to an idol? Because I can't eat this. He's like, dude, if you go to an unbeliever's house and that's not a question that they would ever even think about or bring up, and they put a big steaming pile of carne asada in front of you, just like, chow down. But if someone says to you, this has been offered in sacrifice, then do not eat it for the sake of the one who informed you, and for the sake of conscience. I don't mean your conscience, I mean the other guy's conscience. For why should my liberty or my freedom be determined by someone else's conscience? If I partake with thankfulness, why am I denounced because of that for which I give thanks? Now listen to this last sentence here and we'll conclude, because this ties everything together. So whether you eat or drink or whatever you do all to the glory of God. Give no offense to Jews or to Greeks or to the church of God, just as I try to please everyone in everything I do, not seeking my own advantage, but that of many, that they may be saved. That is a good compass. That's a good grounding principle for us. And that answers a lot of questions. Is our root motivation that every single thing we do, whether it's what we eat, it's what we drink, it's what we watch on TV, it's what friends we hang out with, it's what we say with our mouth, it's how we treat our spouse, how we treat our kids, it's everything. Every single thing you do is everything dedicated to bringing glory to God. Would you be proud to say, I'm offering this behavior to God? Or would you go, whoo, if there's one thing I know, it's that God does not want this. Dang. Can we say that in even the mundane things and the things that seem small and the details of our life, can we say that, you know what, even those, I want to make sure that I feel like no matter what I do, no matter who it is I'm interacting with, no matter if I'm filling out my taxes, no matter what it is, I want to know for myself and for my own conscience that whatever I do, however I live, every choice I make, I want it to bring honor to my God. And beyond that, I also want to honor other people. Paul said, I don't bring any offense. I strive to live in such a way that I don't bring any offense to Greeks, to Jews, to the church of God. He's saying to anybody. I don't bring any offense to Republicans or Democrats. I don't bring any offense to Christians or non-Christians. I don't bring any offense to anybody. Now, maybe my stance, maybe my values are offensive, but I am not going out of my way to avoid people, to skirt the issue. At the end of the day, I want to love people like Jesus loved. I want to bring the gospel of Jesus Christ to people. I want the power of God to invade people's lives. And that's not going to happen through me if I'm a million miles away from people and I hate them because they hold different views than me. Paul is saying everything that you do, everything that you think, and the way that you act should be to honor God and to bring other people one step closer to Jesus Christ. I can't make everybody think like me. I can't make everybody believe like me, but I can be the kind of person who is kind and sweet and loving and fun to be around. And I can be a real person to other real people, even if they don't share the same views, if they don't hold the same values, because I'm not trying to get them to look more like me. I'm trying to get them to look more like Jesus. And the first step to doing that is for me to look more like Jesus. And I'll tell you what, you can try really hard, and that does help. But at the end of the day, what it takes is that God just has to come and he has to change our hearts. He has to change our desires. And really 100% of the Christian gospel is not, I'm just going to try and clean myself up and try harder and try to impress somebody. The Christian gospel is this: we can't try hard enough. We can't do it. That it takes Jesus Christ changing our nature, changing us from the inside out into a different person, a new creation. And that is something miraculous. It's not something we can manufacture. And if that's something you want for yourself, I'd invite you to pray this prayer with me. Dear Jesus, I know that I need you, and I don't know how to change. I don't know how to be right with you. I just know that I need you. And if you would take a chance on me, if you'd let me be in your family, if you would let your sacrifice cover my sin, I'll be yours. I'll live for you. Save me. In Jesus' name, amen.
What a great message from Pastor Aaron this morning. We want to thank you guys so much for tuning in this morning for service, and remind you that if you guys need to get a hold of us, if you guys have prayer requests, we would love to hear from you. Please email us at joychurchgp@gmail.com. We love hearing from you guys. We also want to let you know you can check out our website, joygrantspass.com, to find out any information you want about Joy Church, as well as links to our social media page and ways to give. We also want to remind you guys that during this time we are hosting watch parties. And watch parties are smaller groups of people that are meeting around Southern Oregon to watch the Sunday morning service together. You can also find those on our website under the groups tab. So check those out this morning. Get involved in a watch party. We are so glad that you guys are with us this Sunday, and have a great day.